Nigeria's Tax Reform Act of 2025 is already being implemented this year. The reforms aim to consolidate multiple taxes and levies, provide relief for small businesses, expand the tax net, and introduce a mandatory digital compliance system. While these changes are expected to improve revenue generation, many Nigerians are asking critical questions like, how will these funds be managed? How do citizens ensure accountability after taxes are collected? And can the reforms truly support economic stability? Today on Business Express, our focus is on fiscal accountability, talking about how government and tax authorities can be held responsible for the use of public tax revenue. Joining us in the studio is Dr. Umar Yakubu, Executive Director, Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity. It's always a pleasure to have you in the studio, Doc.
Thank you for having me.
For starters, why is accountability just as important as tax collection in a reform like this?
Well, it's very important because a lot of discussions that have been going on for the last 1 year is about the tax, harmonization of the tax laws, which they used to be about 56, if I'm correct now they are back to about 4 in number. So that harmonization is good. But what the law does is it helps in now tax collection from the whole country, from individuals and from businesses and corporations. Now, but once you do that now, what do you do with all those revenues? We're used to seeing revenues generating and increasing all over the years. Especially in the last 2 years, you can see the state governments have been getting a lot more revenue. But no, if you ask most civil society and media, has there been any reduction in poverty? Has there been a reduction in unemployment? Have we seen more infrastructure being built at the subnational level? The answer is likely to be no. So that means that there's an absence of accountability mechanisms, to absorb those kind of funds at the subnational level. Now, the same thing is about to happen to this same tax issue we're talking about now. Revenue will be generated, a lot will be generated, there will be efficiency in collection that will improve. Now, what about the distribution? Because one of the tools for combating corruption actually is the use of tax. Because when you pay a tax, you want to see your tax revenue properly utilized in the manner that it should be done. So what we have not seen so far as a civil society organization, we have not seen any mechanism on ground to show that there's going to be any improvement in the management of all these revenues that will be for the development of the citizens.
Yeah, one major concern among Nigerians is actually the transparency in how tax revenues are located and spent, like you rightly mentioned. So what mechanisms, in your expert opinion, should be put in place to ensure that fiscal authorities, including the Nigerian Revenue Service, are held accountable for every kobo collected under these new reforms?
Okay, one, we could do 2 or 3 things. The first thing is there has to be 100% transparency about the revenue generation, the tax collection, and the distribution. Every month, there should be an online portal. It is very easy to build, where you see everything that is being shared to every tier of government or whatever, any institution like the NEL fund and all those tax funds, where they are going to get some percentages from the tax being collected. That is one. The second thing, if you look at a lot of countries, what they do for a certain individual is you will receive on a monthly basis information where, for example, 100,000 has been collected from you as tax. You clearly see in that 100,000 how much each naira and each kobo to which sector is going to. So that helps in monitoring. For example, out of 100,000, if you tell me 20,000 out of the 100,000 goes to healthcare, and what aspect of healthcare, not in broad terms, because you need to track this money and trace it. It will be easier for people to see where their monies are going to. But this present mechanism now, where you want to pull money together and just distribute it, like in your introduction where you talked about this month, we have shared X amount in January, we are going to share X amount in February, and it just goes through the same mechanism where there is very low level of accountability. It means all the tax collected is still going to drain. So like I said, 2 things: there has to be open digitalization of all tax collection, the whole process, the collection, the distribution, and how it's being expended. And citizens that are being taxed should be shown what their taxes are going to be used for in detail, not a lump sum. Don't tell us 100 billion has just gone to healthcare or to cybersecurity level. If it goes 5% goes to, say, for example, cybersecurity level, what amount is being expended in that sector? Thirdly and lastly, there's a portion, a percentage that is going to different organizations or institutions, such as the education levy fund. Maybe there's an agricultural fund, the cybersecurity fund. Those institutions too now have to be accountable to citizens that they have collected X amount of money, and this is exactly what is being used for.
So what role does digital tax compliance play in improving accountability?
Yeah, because it helps, it improves efficiency, one, it reduces corruption, the risk for corruption, because the human element has been taken out there. Then thirdly, it gives a platform for openness, because once you collect every information you collect digitally, you can now bring it out to the public domain. And what is also important, as you collect taxes, everything should be in the open, because it's transparency that will lead to accountability. So as you're collecting it digitally, everything should show on the public portal.
All right, with the introduction of stiffer penalties for tax evasion and under remittance in the Nigeria Tax Administration Act, how can citizens and the civil society organizations actively participate in monitoring compliance? Do you think this will help to deter corruption, or are there gaps that need to be addressed?
The easiest way to improve tax compliance is when citizens see that their tax is working for them. That's the easiest way. If no matter how much you run around and penalize people to be paying their taxes, if they do not see it on ground, as we say in Nigeria, they are going to be reluctant. But when they see it, the transparency and accountability in the expenditure of their taxes, I'm telling you, people would readily comply. But if you have a regime now where people will be seeing their taxes being increased and collected, and they see public officers still riding those expensive jeeps, riding private jets, and spending the way they are used to spending now with this, since the removal of fuel subsidy, and they are going to be penalizing a lot of organizations and individuals. So it's an issue about trust. All over the world, tax is an issue about trust between the government and the people that are being taxed, because nobody actually wants to pay tax. So if he has to pay, he must see a reason why he should be paying.
So what happens when there is mismanagement of tax funds? Are there clear consequences, especially for a country like Nigeria?
Yeah, taking tax funds is a financial crime. It's an economic and financial crime. So that falls directly on the under the purview of the EFCC, which I believe will collaborate with the Nigerian Revenue Service now to collaborate with them in the prosecution of those that take funds that belong to the people and do not belong to them. So any amount taken is a financial crime, and they should be prosecuted for it.
Drawing from your experience at the Center for Fiscal Transparency, what challenges do you foresee in implementing accountability measures, especially with the exemptions and reliefs provided in the tax reforms, and how might these be addressed?
Yeah, the major challenge is that we need to strengthen the accountability mechanisms, always emphasized at the subnational level. Now, people are going to be paying more taxes, so the accountability mechanisms are one. The Code of Conduct Bureau needs to step up in its work in checking the conduct of public officers. There are a lot of codes there that they're supposed to adhere to. If they don't adhere to them, we're going to be having problems. The second thing, our banks need to be more vigilant when it comes to anti-money laundering, because when they take most of these monies, they keep them in the banks, or they use the bureau de changes to change them to another foreign currencies, because of it's easier to keep and maintain. So all these regulatory organizations and law enforcement agencies and anti-corruption agencies just need to be more diligent now, because there's going to be more revenue coming through these government institutions, in particularly now the Nigerian Revenue Service. If you don't do what you are supposed to do, you find that now the next set of billionaires, public sector billionaires who are going to be breeding are staff of the Nigerian Revenue Service. So there has to be more eye on them, more diligence by the Code of Conduct Bureau and the EFCC and the ICPC.
Yeah. The tax reforms promise relief for small companies or businesses. How can accountability ensure these benefits actually reaches them?
I didn't get that question, sorry.
The tax reforms.
Yes.
It promises tax relief for small businesses.
Yes.
So my question is, how can accountability ensure these benefits actually reach these small businesses?
Because, well, the reform is actually progressive, meaning the more money you make, the more you be taxed. And those that are making below a certain amount should have some sort of tax relief. And that has to do, it's an administrative issue. But if there's more transparency, but it's just starting, we have not seen whether they're complying with that policy or not. Well, I want to believe that they would, because it actually makes sense that if you don't want to drive people out of businesses, those below a certain threshold should have that relief so that you get to be able to employ more people and expand the economy. So it just makes economic sense, and I believe they will do that.
Now, what's your message to Nigerians who are skeptical about paying more taxes under this regime?
First of all, my message to Nigerians is to the authorities, there needs to be a lot more advocacy and explanation about what this tax regime is. Because there's too much apprehension right now. Even the last program on the NTA on Tuesday Live, you could see about an hour program, people were just calling in, asking basic questions. So there needs to be a lot more advocacy in simple language terms about what the new tax policies are. And my message to Nigerians that yes, if you see everybody should pay his tax, yes, nobody should break the law. But you need to be more vigilant, especially if they present the tax, how your tax is being spent, they should make sure that they are presenting that, and we all follow the money and ensure that they are utilizing the taxes we pay for our own benefit. Dr.
Yakubu Umar, thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you for having me.
Express.
Anytime.
Moving on, the federal government of